It all started on a gray, quiet morning in the lawyer's office. The air was thick with tension as my sister and I sat side by side, waiting to hear how our parents' inheritance would be divided. I had taken care of them for years, driving them to doctor's appointments, paying bills when times got tough, and spending countless nights by their side. My sister, on the other hand, lived in another city and rarely visited, but she always knew how to charm people when it mattered most. When the lawyer finally opened the folder, my heart pounded. He began reading aloud, "To my daughter, Rebecca, I leave the sum of $100,000. My sister gasped, covering her mouth in fake shock, before bursting into a smile. She squeezed my arm and whispered, "Looks like I got the lucky hand." I forced a small smile, waiting for my turn. Then came the words that would change everything. "To my son, Daniel, I leave the old storage shed behind our family home." The room went silent. My sister blinked, then laughed, a sharp, mocking laugh that echoed through the office. Even the lawyer looked uncomfortable. I sat frozen. A shed? After everything I had done? The humiliation burned inside me. My sister leaned in and said sarcastically, "Guess you can store your broken dreams in there." Everyone chuckled, except me. On the way home, I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. I didn't care about money, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a reason behind my parents' decision. That night, as my sister celebrated her newfound wealth, I stared out the window toward that old, forgotten shed. Something about it suddenly felt different, almost like it was waiting for me. Any longer. The image of that old shed kept flashing in my mind like a whisper calling me back home. So, I drove to our parents' house, a place that now felt both familiar and distant. The moment I stepped into the backyard, the shed stood there like a ghost from the past. Its roof sagged. The wooden walls were cracked, and the paint had long faded into dull gray. A cold breeze brushed past, carrying the scent of rust and old wood. I hesitated at the door, half expecting it to fall apart the moment I touched it. With a deep breath, I grabbed the handle and pushed. It creaked open slowly, groaning like it hadn't moved in years. A cloud of dust filled the air, making me cough as I stepped inside. Everything looked just as I remembered. Stacks of cardboard boxes, broken tools, old furniture, and spiderwebs hanging from every corner. The air was thick, heavy with memories. I found a few things from my childhood: an old baseball glove, Dad's radio, Mom's garden hat. For a moment, I felt a pang of nostalgia. But then something caught my eye. The back wall. It didn't look right. The wood there was newer, smoother, and slightly different in color. Curious, I walked closer, running my fingers over the surface. It sounded hollow when I tapped it, unlike the rest of the walls. My heart started to race. Why would this section be newer than the rest of the shed? I grabbed an old hammer from the corner and lightly tapped the edge of one plank. It shifted, just slightly. Beneath the dim light of my flashlight, I saw a thin line, almost like a hidden door waiting to be opened. It all began on a day that seemed completely ordinary. Calm skies, quiet streets, nothing unusual at all. But beneath that calm surface, something inside me had already begun to crack. For months, I had been holding everything in: the lies, the manipulation, the fake smiles, the constant betrayal. I kept telling myself to be patient, to be kind, to rise above it. But every time I forgave, a little part of me died. They thought I was weak, but in truth, I was waiting. Waiting for the moment when I wouldn't need to feel anymore. And when that moment finally came, I didn't cry or scream. I didn't even think. I just acted. With a smile on my face and complete stillness in my heart. That was the day I realized how terrifying it feels to lose every trace of guilt, and how freeing it can be. Before everything fell apart, I used to believe that people could change if you just loved them enough. I gave too many chances, forgave too many lies, and trusted too many fake smiles. I thought that being the good one meant staying silent, letting others win, and pretending not to notice their cruelty. But silence is dangerous. It traps all your pain inside until it turns into something darker. Every time they laughed behind my back, every time they broke a promise, I swallowed my anger and smiled through it. I told myself it wasn't worth fighting for, that peace was better than confrontation. But peace built on lies never lasts. Slowly, my emotions began to fade. Anger, sadness, peace, guilt, all replaced by something colder. Indifference. I started seeing people for who they truly were, not who I wanted them to be. That's when everything changed. The moment I stopped feeling sorry for them, I realized how much power I'd given away. The same smile they once saw as kindness became my mask. Calm, controlled, unreadable. Deep down, I knew the storm was. It happened slowly, like ice spreading through my veins. Every little betrayal, every half-truth, every fake apology stacked up until the weight became unbearable. I had convinced myself that walking away was the strongest thing I could do. But they wouldn't let me walk away. They pushed, provoked, and played with my emotions as if I didn't have limits. The night I discovered what they'd done, how far they had gone behind my back, something inside me snapped. It wasn't anger. Anger fades. This was colder, quieter, deeper. It was the realization that I no longer cared about right or wrong. All I wanted was balance, to make them feel what they made me feel. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat there in silence, planning every detail in my head. Every word I would say, every move I would make. The plan wasn't about revenge. It was about release. I wanted to free myself from the endless cycle of hurt. When the time finally came, I looked them in the eyes and felt nothing. No pity, no fear, no guilt. Just a strange calm, as if the universe had gone still. And in that silence, I did the coldest thing imaginable and smiled. The moment arrived without warning, but deep down, I knew it was inevitable. I had played that scene in my head so many times that when it finally happened, it felt rehearsed, calm, deliberate, precise. There were no loud words, no chaos, no second thoughts, just silence. My heartbeat didn't race. My hands didn't tremble. It was as if I had become someone else entirely, detached, emotionless, in full control. I remember the look in their eyes. Disbelief, fear, confusion. They couldn't understand how I could do something so heartless and still smile. But that smile wasn't joy. It was peace. The kind of peace that comes only when you stop pretending to care. In that moment, all the pain they had caused me, all the sleepless nights, all the tears, it all vanished. There was no revenge in what I did, only closure. I didn't want them to suffer. I just wanted it to end. When it was over, I stood there, breathing slowly, realizing that I had crossed a line I could never return from. And the strangest part? I didn't regret it. I felt light, almost free. That's when I understood what true coldness feels like. After it was done, the world felt eerily quiet, as if even time had paused to process what had just happened. I expected to feel guilt, fear, or maybe even panic, but none of it came. Instead, I felt an unsettling calm, like the eye of a storm that had finally passed. People around me acted as if nothing had changed, but inside, I knew everything had. The person I used to be, emotional, forgiving, endlessly patient, was gone. What remained was someone colder, sharper, harder to read. I moved through the days like a ghost, detached from everything, but strangely at peace. No nightmares, no regrets, just silence. It was almost terrifying how easy it was to live with what I'd done. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection and see that same faint smile, not happiness, but acceptance. I had crossed the line, and there was no going back. The guilt people expected me to feel never arrived, because guilt only exists when you still believe you were wrong. I didn't. For me, it wasn't cruelty, it was survival. And in that chilling calm, I realized sometimes losing your emotions isn't a curse. It's freedom. Time has passed, yet the memory remains as sharp as ever. I often replay that moment in my mind, not to relive it, but to understand it. People assume that when you do something cold-hearted, you're haunted by it forever. But that's not always true. Sometimes, the haunting part is realizing how not haunted you feel. I've tried to ask myself if it was worth it. The silence, the emptiness, the price of peace. And every time, my mind gives the same quiet answer, yes. I didn't do it out of hate. I did it because I had nothing left to lose. There's a strange clarity that comes when your emotions die. You stop chasing forgiveness. Stop begging for closure. You simply exist. I walk through life now with the same calm smile, and no one suspects the darkness behind it. They see confidence, control, strength, but inside, there's only stillness. Maybe I did lose a part of my soul that day, or maybe I just shed the part that always got hurt. The truth is, guilt is a chain that only binds those who still feel. I broke mine the day I smiled, and never looked back.